Enjoy 12 months roadside assistance, a full vehicle health check, and Audi genuine replacement parts as standard. Your journey continues with Audi Servicing. Book now on audiservice.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you looking for an affordable alternative to a nursing home or private visiting care service? AL Home Care are the live-in care specialists that give your loved ones the independence they deserve. Contact us today at alhomecare.ie. That's alhomecare.ie.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power's Save Our Game. Donating at least 100,000 to Irish football via England goals this summer. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
You are welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 5. The text number 53106. We're streaming the conversation as well. You can listen to us on News Talk and watch us on the Off the Ball social channels for Periscope on Twitter, at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook, and on the OTB Sports app. We're bringing you football now because we're giving you full commentary of the opening Lions warm-up game against Japan from 3 o'clock. We're going to talk about soccer between now and 2. Football on Off the Ball with Paddy Power's Save Our Game, donating €10,000 to Irish football for every goal England score at the Euros. Johnny Ward, how are you?
I'm good, Judy. You just caught the tail end of your conversation with Will there about Rafa. I think I was kind of disagreeing with David Myler about this. I know David Myler is a big Liverpool fan, but I thought Rafa would be a great move for Everton. I think he's a fantastic coach, and I think it would have been sad if he kind of, just eased out of the game now and got some job like on foreign shores that he did. And I think it's going to be fascinating. I think he's going to do a great job at Everton. I don't know what you think.
He once called them a small club. He said he didn't mean it that way, but he did call them a small club.
I don't think it taints his Liverpool legacy, because the Liverpool-Everton relationship is a lot different. Like if you went to Man United now, that'd be a different story. But I don't think Liverpool fans will be apoplectic with it, put it that way.
Well, Liverpool was a city that was treated so badly by their own government for so many years, and it was an absolute disgrace what happened to Liverpool as a city in the 80s. So I think there's a bond between Liverpool and Everton fans. That there's no hatred. I don't really feel hatred. There's a rivalry. There's an edge to it, but I don't really feel a hatred between Liverpool and Everton as football clubs as I would between, say, Liverpool and Man United.
Yeah, like absolutely. And I've been to a few Liverpool games down the years, long after Benitez left, and every game they chant his name. He really, really got that city. I know Jurgen Klopp did, but he's a very, very humble person. I've met people who've met him, and he's just absolutely besotted with football. He's not a guy befitting the man of kind of all the money he's probably made down the years and all the things he's won and so forth. He's just a real humble football guy, and if you talk to him about football, he'll respect your opinion. And I think the English football game would be far better for him to be back in it, and not at Newcastle, but at a more functioning club like Everton. I think it'd be great for the game.
Well, he's a proven winner. He broke a Barca Real stranglehold in Spain with Valencia, won a La Liga, won a Europa League, won a Europa League with Chelsea, did obviously brilliantly at Liverpool to win a Champions League, fell short in the title race, but they were second. Man United were very dominant, as we all know, back then. Newcastle did an excellent job. They loved him on Tyneside in very difficult circumstances. He's a proven winner. Moshiri seems to have a lot of money to spend. That I don't think is going to stop. The spigot is not going to be cut off there for Rafa, and they're moving to that new stadium. I think it's exciting times to be an Everton fan.
Absolutely, I know. I mean, Ancelotti, they've probably replaced him one top-class coach who's getting on a bit for another. Ancelotti did a great job, but I mean, you could go for a manager now, like maybe a kind of more run-of-the-mill English manager that wouldn't necessarily excite you. Ancelotti is going to be a loss, but like it's been kind of I think it's an unfair criticism of Rafa's teams that they don't play amazingly good football, but like they play good football, and it's ultimately about winning games. And he's a master tactician, and he does get the best out of the players there. He doesn't have that wouldn't have the kind of Klopp type relationship with players. That it is more kind of, it's more businessman like and so forth. And he's not going to be asked.
It was Steven Gerrard. He never said well done to Steven Gerrard. That was the famous one, wasn't
it? The story was that he went up to Fernando Torres not to congratulate him about the birth of his child, but about like a pass he made in the previous game or something like that. He's just football obsessed, like yourself, JD, in many ways.
In some ways, I am absolutely football obsessed. I'm obsessed about the beauty of football and beautiful football and great football. Sometimes I can be not as obsessed about the humdrum. I'm not a statistics person when it comes to football. I think statistics should be for horse racing and for golf. Football is about simple game played beautifully. And XG for me is XG. I'm going off a tangent here. I hate, for example.
Well, like XG is completely misleading because you can have an XG in a game where, for example, the France Germany game. I think France's XG in that game is something like 0.6, but that's completely irrelevant. Like France were 1-0 up in the game and they managed the game there afterwards, restricting Germany to kind of a 1 or 2 half chances. And France are just a team that manage games. That's the way they're kind of designed. And XG, like it gives you some indication of maybe chances missed, but it's irrelevant. And Ken earlier had an interesting article in the Times today about Luis Enrique trying to move away from France's like overdoing it on the beautiful game of passing, and completely by contrast, I was at a game in the League of Ireland First Division last night between Limerick and Galway United where there were hardly any passes. It was a real battle. It was an absolute battle of physical players. And in a strange way, as much as I was given out about it, it was enjoyable because it was kind of going back to, the physical nature of, and also the tactical nature of just winning a game. And that's kind of what it's about. And I think if everyone played like Man City, Pat Fennan has said this many times, if everyone played like Man City, it would get boring as well.
It would. Football's about different styles. And it was international tournaments like in 74 that it was the birth of new styles. But you've seen different styles, and tiki-taka had its day, really, didn't it, in that 3 tournament run for Spain. But they had amazing players to execute the strategy, Iniesta, Xavi, and they don't have these players. They don't have the cutting edge at the moment, so it looks like they're passing the ball into infinity at the moment. But to be fair, they did hammer Slovakia, and we'll have to wait and see what happens in the rest of the competition for Spain. We have Wales against Denmark at 5 to kick off the last 16, Johnny, in Amsterdam. I don't really know how to call this one. Obviously, Denmark are on a high. It's been an emotional time for them, and it's great to see that they got through to the last 16. They beat Russia comprehensively. For Wales, I thought they were poor against Switzerland, much improved against Turkey. They've 2 excellent players who haven't had great club runs of late with Bale and Ramsey. How are you assessing this one?
I'm with you, JD, and the bookmakers are really favouring, they're really favouring Denmark in the game, which I don't really get. The club, I think both of these teams have similarities in terms of somewhat in terms of a messed up preparation for the competition, because if you go back to Denmark in terms of winning the tournament in '92 and the fact that they weren't there, this tournament has arguably thrown up completely random challenges at them in the Eriksson thing, and I think most people probably accepted that they would sort of not have the mental capabilities, particularly after losing against Finland. I mean, they had to overcome not only the turmoil of the Eriksson situation, but a really disgraceful imposition of playing the game that evening, which I don't think fans thought was fair. Then you have Wales, who've obviously the Ryan Giggs situation, have a coach who's more or less unproven. Interesting piece on him by Dan McDonald in the Indo today. He's a people kind of a coach, but he was pretty unproven and has had a slightly checkered past. So they went into that with a coach who kind of had to galvanise the players and all that. And I thought against Turkey, I really feared for them against Turkey. That game was played at about 28 degrees in Baku. And I thought the Turks, as much as they were fairly insipid against Italy, I thought they'd come out and play. But Wales managed that game really well. And as you mentioned, the brilliance of Ramsey and Bale in particular, James as well, they even Kiefer Moore, I think, does a job. They have a solid defence, and I think they have the capabilities of breaking down what isn't really the strongest Denmark defence in the world. Denmark, the game against Russia kind of could have gone either way, I think, and it's going to be high in emotion. And I think this is a game that's difficult for the neutral. In Ireland, like I'd say, it's fairly safe to say now, Irish people in general, of the teams left, the most team they want to do well is probably Wales. But Wales are taking on Denmark, and nobody would have wished what happened to Denmark on them. So I think in terms of who you want to win this game, it'd be interesting, our listeners, what they think. But I think it's going to be touch and go.
Yeah, I just wonder about the Wales midfield. I think Delaney and Højbjerg are solid in that Denmark midfield, and I'm not sure about that. I thought Switzerland were clearly the better team against Wales. I just don't know how bad Turkey were. Turkey were really, really poor in the competition, and Denmark they've got a lot young attacking players in their side. I would probably edge it for Denmark. Mikael Damsgaard, Daniel Wassius, Poulsen is up front. Yeah, look, it is difficult to call. Italy, Austria at 8 o'clock at Wembley. I just can't wait to see how Italy fare against a decent team, because they should negotiate Austria tonight. They've scored 7 goals, conceded none. They've unbeaten in 30. They haven't conceded in 11. They're playing like a club team, Italy, and it's very hard to see how Austria are going to be able to break them down.
That's exactly what they're like. They're like a club team, and it's interesting. Just looking at some of the things they've started, I think, chanting the Italian '90s song that Italy had, and I think, Italian football has been in flux in recent years. I've been over there a few times. They had serious problems with kind of fans not going to games as much anymore. They're making it difficult for fans to go to club games because of issues over crowd trouble in sort of the last decade or so. And there was, as I was going to games over the years, I felt a sense that Italy was kind of slightly losing its kind of football in Italy was kind of slightly losing its kind of hold over the people. And yet that was reflected in the club scene as well, where Italian, with the masters of football in the 90s or whatever, the Italian club game has definitely struggled. But this team certainly seems to have galvanised the nation. I think Mancini deserves an awful lot of credit for that, not only because of their high press game and the fact that they're so good to watch, but the fact that he's insisted that it's a squad thing. He brought on the sub-keeper the other night just to give him a game, and they're very good to watch. I'm like you though, JD. I'm looking at even the greatly celebrated Chiellini and their back four who can concede. For me, the reason they haven't conceded yet is they just haven't really played a very good team. And if Italy come up against France, even if they come up against like a resurgent like Netherlands down the line, I definitely think they're not as good as they look. And it'll be interesting to see, can they control games against these better sides? Can they pass the ball out of the back as much? Because for me, the team like that just look best geared to win this tournament are France. But the other thing I would say about Italy is they've started on the tournament on such a high that it is a long tournament, and I think you kind of a bit maybe like Spain and to a lesser extent England, you kind of have to ease yourself into it and kind of save yourself for the latter stages. And they've seriously good players obviously up front. I'm just not sure they have the capabilities of beating the very good sides, and it won't be probably told against Austria, who are okay, but they just don't have the capabilities of beating Italy, I would have thought.
But it could tell against Belgium or Portugal, who they're set to meet in the quarterfinals. England, Germany on Tuesday. I can't believe they're looking to offer Southgate a new contract before the match is even played. I just can't believe this. It's up to Southgate to get the best out of these players, who are excellent players, playing at the top level of world football, a really exciting team. I just really hope they don't blow it again.
Do you hope they don't blow it against Germany, yeah?
I just hope for it's the quality of the players. It's not really about England winning the tournament or not winning the tournament. For England to go out in the last 16 of a tournament they've been effectively playing at home by playing football that is not at peak level would be very disappointing given the talent they have at their disposal.
Yeah, I actually spoke to a few English fans during the week, and they made the point that the fans who are supporting England are very quick to sort of give out about players who aren't kind of playing for the club that they like. And I think Dave Myler was saying it as well, that there isn't necessarily the harmony there between the fans and the players. But that aside, I'm completely with you on this. I don't see, apart from getting to the semi-finals of the World Cup where essentially they kind of bottled it against Croatia, I don't see what Southgate has done with an extremely good bunch of players to merit chat that he's over the line for a new contract regardless of what happens against Germany. Because essentially England should be winning this game. Germany are not the team they were. You saw Neuer even the other night against Hungary, how poor he was for the second goal. Germany really, really limped over the line against Hungary. They're not really a functional team, and they're not probably the sum of their parts. They're certainly not the German team you'd expect. And defensively, they're nowhere near the teams of old that we've seen from Germany. So England should completely readily accept this challenge and win, but I wouldn't have any confidence from them that they have the mental capabilities of coming through another really tough game. And you got to sense the other night in the last few minutes that Germany were relishing the prospect of just getting over the line against Hungary. We fancy our chance against England historically, and maybe mentally we think we can do the job here. We seem to be speaking about Harry Kane the show every week, but it is very much reliant on him. I know he's saying that he's going to come strong later in the tournament, but England, I'm just not sure about their system otherwise, the way that they play with such a packed midfield. They don't maybe have the width that you'd expect from a good England side, and so much is reliant on Kane. If he's not on his game, I think they could well be beaten against Germany. But I just find the game very hard to call, JD, because Germany have been so up and down. They were good against Portugal, but Portugal capitulated defensively. But they were really, really poor against Hungary. And I don't think you can just say, it was a case of, they had to get over the line. They were 5 minutes from being knocked out. And they're a very ordinary German team from my perspective, particularly defensively.
Who's your player of the tournament so far? For me, it's Pogba.
I actually think it's Pogba, yeah, and just played a game of football there before this. Was speaking to a Man United fan, again, me lift out, and he says the narrative about Pogba playing crap for Man United and playing well for France is rubbish because it's all about Kante. But I mean, the way he can actually tackle, the way he can get around the pitch, his general mentality. Yeah, I think Deschamps probably deserves a bit of credit, JD, because he's gotten the best out of him now in successive tournaments.
And Benzema has worked.
And Benzema, absolutely. France are the perfect team to win this tournament for me because they can, a bit like the Germany game, they can kind of reserve their energy on the basis that, I always go back to that. I don't know, saw that amazing footage of the Croatia game at half-time when they won the tournament, and it was like just
give the ball to
Mbappe. Play the ball to Kylian, give the ball to Kylian. And it's kind of as simple as that, because when you have so much pace on the break, as a defence, you can't really rush that high up, because Mbappe can give you 10 yards and still beat you. Pogba has the ability to pick him out. He picked a pass in that Croatia game. It was one of the best passes I've ever seen the pitch, and Mbappe made it with yards to spare. But defensively, they're so strong. I love Kante, obviously. Rabiot maybe has to go into the tournament a little bit more, but Pogba for me has been, maybe he was quiet in the middle game, but he was exceptional, obviously, again against Portugal. And I think he's a brilliant footballer. I just would wish that Man United, or wherever he goes, would get the best out from week to week, because I think he does need a bit of man management. He's fantastic to watch. Obviously, Ronaldo deserves a mention as well at his age. He looks like long odds on to get top goal scorer now. And if Portugal are to do something, which looks unlikely, an awful lot will rely on him.
We got Shamrock Rovers drawing again, 1-1 with Drogheda. So they won 2 out of their last 8. St Pat's lead on goal difference in the League of Ireland after their 1-1 draw at Waterford. Do we have a title race legitimately? I thought Rovers would run away with this.
Yeah, we definitely do, JD. If Sligo Rovers beat Bohs today, there will be 3 teams tied on the same points. But conversely, if Bohs win, Bohs will be 5 points off top, which I think is more significant because Bohs are the form team in the league. Shamrock Rovers, I spoke to a fella within the league who made the point that there was so much said about Shamrock Rovers that they're going to walk the league. And if you ally that to the fact that their main rivals, Dundalk, have been so off the pace, they haven't been maybe challenged as much and maybe got into the players' heads. But Jack Byrne and Aaron McAniff are massive losses. And if you look at Rovers, as much as they've won 2 of their last 8, I think. But if you go before that, where they were actually, I think they went 7 points clear. So many games in isolation. They needed late winners to get over the line, and they haven't actually played well in, I'd say, about 2/3 of their games. So there's a major challenge for Stephen Bradley. It'll be definitely looked upon as failure if they don't win the league from the position that they were in. To be drawn 1-1 at home to Drogheda, it was a very, very controversial night in JD in many respects in the League of Ireland, because there were a load of controversial decisions, red cards and penalties. 2 red cards given in the Shamrock Rovers games, and it very much looked like Homer Simpson telling Lisa the 2 wrongs make a right, because 1 penalty was given. I think the second was only given to Drogheda because the first one was wrong. Sean Gannon clearly dived and a penalty was given. But Shamrock Rovers still had a lot of time and couldn't get over the line, and they play Dundalk now next weekend, and this is really intriguing because Dundalk under Vinnie Perth have 7 points out of 9. And also next weekend, Bohs go to St Patrick's Athletic, who to me are probably the other 2 teams in the title race. So it's really, really hotting up. And St Patrick's Athletic don't have any teams to play in Europe, so they have no distractions. The only issue is, like as Dan wrote about in the paper during the week, this has been completely sidelined because of the Euros, which is fair enough. But it's actually a little bit disappointing because it's a really fascinating League of Ireland campaign. And I just wish, JD, that I was at a game last night where Treaty were playing Galway, and it was Treaty's first game with the crowd there, and 100 people, despite the fact it was a poor game, the noise that they made and the passion and how much they enjoyed it. And I really feel sorry for old people who've been basically told by the government, you can't go to football games because we think it's in your interest. Whereas there are old people a lot of old football fans who get their fix every week. They meet, their friends and go for a pint maybe and go to watch their team. And they haven't been able to do that for a year and a half. And it's quite sad that there isn't necessarily an end in sight in that regard.
And it's, I think, the most important thing for the League of Ireland over the next 10 years, apart from obviously support through funding, and that is the connection between the players and their community, and the community knows who these people are. And Chris Shields is a great example of that. 9 years at Dundalk, and it was almost like a brilliant music video last night with holding the flare outside the ground at Oriel Park after his last game.
Yeah, you're spot on there, JD. Like the League of Ireland has been very dysfunctional, and this has lent itself to a lot of 1-year contracts. And with so many teams, give or take, in the Dublin region, you've players club hopping, and like if you're just a different set of players every year wearing the same Bray or Drogheda jersey or whatever it is, I don't see why your floating fans should get any connection to that team. And it's massively important that you bring young players through, and I think the League of Ireland is doing that a lot more. There's the interesting documentary about our town on Bray on RT this week. Had a lot of Bray Wanderers in it and a lot of community stuff going on there. But Bows have done this really well, where they've really gotten involved in local projects. But what Chris Shields did in Dundalk, I know he's a Dubliner, but he was just really the heart and soul of that club. And I think just from a footballing side of things, a player who really looked fairly ordinary, early in his career, then went on to play in Europa League group stages, where to my mind in some of the games he was the best player on the pitch. Certainly even in a dysfunctional Dundalk team last year, he was brilliant in games. He really was brilliant, and went toe-to-toe against top players and developed into one of the best players that's ever played in the League of Ireland. I think that's fair to see. And his departure, I suppose, is synonymous with Dundalk, the way the club has gone. It's been recklessly mismanaged,
Okay, well, hopefully it'll improve under Vinnie Perth. Just before you go, Johnny, very briefly, any shocks you think of the Euros this weekend?
I don't see any shocks this weekend. But I've a sneaking suspicion Spain might actually go very far in this tournament, because they've been so written off. And I'd love to see Morata. I'm sure you've read about, the fact that his family have been abused and all that. And it's comically bad how bad he is in front of goal at times. But I'd love to see Morata kind of score goals and put the finishing touches to what is a very good Spain team. But no major shocks in store. If Wales is a shock, I think Wales have a great chance at the odds. Finally, I think France will win the tournament.
Okay, Johnny, thanks so much. Enjoy the matches.
Thanks, JD.
Johnny Ward there. Remember, Football and Off the Ball with Paddy Powers. Save our game, donating €10,000 to Irish football for every goal England score at the Euros. Don't forget, we've got Lions commentary over the next 6 weeks. Every single one of them here on News Talk. Neil Tracy and Andy Dunn will bring you full coverage of the first warm-up match against Japan from 3. We'll build up to that with Andy and Lions legend Keith Wood after the news. Get your questions in 53106 on the text number. You can tweet us also off the ball. And this is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. We're back after this.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Powers' Save Our Game. England's goals total 20k so far for Irish football. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.